Hi there, and welcome to the What's New webinar for the latest release of Mission Control. Version 1.65 will be released on to the App Exchange on the 22nd of September 2023. So let's take a high-level look at what's new, and then we'll jump into the detail. So we've added in a new object that allows you to manage portfolios, which sits above programs. There's also been a number of enhancements to programs as well as phases. There's been some major updates to the Gantt chart as well as extending the functionality of the dependencies offering. The filters that are on all of the various pages within Mission Control have had some updates. There's been major changes to the project overview, some efficiency, productivity gains on the Create Actions page, as well as some additional enhancements to the holiday allowances. There's a new setting that allows you to control what happens when an action is set to cancelled. Some updates to the scheduler and the role forecast component, as well as a few minor enhancements. So portfolios. So as I mentioned, the portfolio is a parent to the program. So what the with the introduction of the portfolio object, it gives you a 7-layer structure of project management within Mission Control. So the core aspects of a project are the project, the milestone, and the action. But you have additional layers that you can leverage above and below those. So going from the top, the 7 layers are portfolio. A portfolio can have multiple related programs. Each program can have multiple related projects. Within those projects, you can have multiple phases. And within each phase, you can have multiple milestones. Within each milestone, you can have multiple actions. And then within each action, you can have multiple checklist items. So to provide you with a view at that portfolio level, we have included a portfolio overview page. So that includes access to the detail tab of the portfolio record. You can also access the Gantt chart component. So that will show you all projects relating to programs relating to that portfolio, and as well as accessing things like the whiteboard, the program charts, the related tab, and the chatter feed. Similar to portfolios, we've added a lot of fields to the program object that provide a roll up of the information from key fields on the projects. So things like the hours and the financials, the status and the dates, that all rolls up from the projects up to the program, and then all of the program information rolls up to the portfolio. And similar to the portfolio object, there is a new program overview page that gives you access to the detail, the Gantt chart, whiteboard, charts related tab, feed, as well as the program planner. So phases have been enhanced to be included when projects are being created. So from the if you're cloning a project manually, if you're auto generating from a project request, or if you're auto generating from specific opportunity generation methods, phases if they're included in the template, they will be included in the project that's generated. So the Gantt chart has been updated to give you the ability to use it at a portfolio level. So seeing the portfolio duration, the program duration, you can also use it at a program level. There's been updates to the CSV export, really just to ensure that the phases and portfolios and programs are being tagged correctly in the export. The PDF export has also been updated to reflect the introduction of the portfolio and programs, and there are now also edit modals on the Gantt chart that allow you to access the portfolio, program, and phase records. So dependencies have really had two major updates. They have been expanded to allow you to include phases within your dependency relationships. So you can now factor in a phase in a finish to start, start to start, or finish to finish. The other key enhancement is you can now create cross-project predecessors. So if you're working on two different projects and something on project B is dependent on something from project A, you can create those dependencies, and regardless of where you're modifying the dates of the records, those dependency relationships will be enforced and reschedule the successors accordingly. So filter sharing, this one has definitely been requested several times, and we're excited to be delivering this. So on any of our key pages like the whiteboard, the scheduler, the action pad, and so on, you can create your own custom filters. So they've now been expanded to support being able to share those filters with other users. So rather than each individual user having to create their own filter, one person create the filter and can make it available to other users as well. The other key feature that is coming with this enhancement is you can actually set a specific filter to be a default for specific users as well. So the project overviews had a few updates. There's additional charts being added to the Insights tab. You also have the ability to control at an individual role level which charts each person gets to see. The Overview tab has been enhanced to provide similar functionality to what it already did, but you can now also access the phase records on the Overview tab, and you can also actually control which fields are displayed for each of the individual record layers. So phase, milestone, action, and checklist, they all come with a field set where you can pick and choose which fields you see on the overview. And similar, the expenses tab has been expanded to also factor in purchase orders as well. So a few productivity gains have been added to the Create Actions page. So there is now the capability of doing a multi-line edit. So for example, if you want to assign an owner to multiple records, you don't have to do that individually. You can select the applicable records, make the change to one, and that will be applied to all records that are selected. So that's any field. So it doesn't have to be the action owner. It could be the start date, the end date, the hours. There's also a quick copy. So just going down one action at a time, you can quickly create you can copy the action owner from the action that's directly above the action you're working on, and that will copy the action owner down. You can also do the same for contributors as well. So really just providing some efficiency gains in populating your records. So holiday allowances, the what was referred to as accruals has now been relabeled as rollovers. So that means anything that has not been used during the period can potentially roll over to the subsequent period. And we've also introduced an actual accrual process where, so if you have 20 days PTO, and some customers choose to actually make all 20 days available from the start of the holiday allowance period. Others choose to actually let them accrue as time goes. So you've got the ability to configure that now. We've introduced a setting on the control pad that allows you to choose what happens to the hours scheduled values when the status of an action is set to cancelled. So you can choose to enable that feature, and you can determine what happens. So you can choose to have the hours scheduled set to 0, or you can have it set to match the hours completed. So that's controlled via the control pad. A few additional enhancements to the scheduler. So on the actions view, you can now view an hour's summary per cell. We've also introduced some scalability features that will load the data in chunks, so allowing you. So we refer to this as polling. So the polling will progressively load the data into the page. And for customers who have a larger group of resources, you can also add pagination. So you can choose to view 10 people at a time, 25 at a time, 50 at a time, so on. As well as having a quick search feature to quickly filter down and find the specific role that you're looking for. And the role forecasts has also had an update where you can now access the resource assignment wizard. So when you're about to add a new resource to the role forecast component, you can use the resource assignment wizard. So you're able to filter down based on team membership, skill set, look at their existing capacity, and so on. Just to cover off the minor enhancements, so the resource planner has had a few updates. You can now control within the settings the decimal display setting, so choosing whether you just see whole numbers or you see two decimal places. There's also been settings added in to allow you to control which standard columns are displayed, so you can choose to display or hide existing out of the box columns. You can also choose to add in some of your own custom columns as well if you want some custom fields to be displayed. Holiday enhancements, we've basically added in a few validation rules to ensure people aren't incorrectly creating holidays. So, for example, not being able to create a team holiday assignment if the holiday is assigned to an individual person, and so on. Time log approvals. There's been a few updates to time log approvals, so you can actually now have a setting on your project that can filter down through milestones and actions, where you can choose to ignore time log approvals. So, for example, you might need time log approvals on the project, but there might be a specific milestone within that project where you don't need time log approvals. So therefore, you can actually set that individual milestone to ignore the approval process, and everything would just default to approved. The other enhancement around time log approvals is if a time log is reparented from one action to another action on a different project, the approval status will be reevaluated. So if something needs to be resubmitted, that will happen now. A couple of updates on the approvals tab as well, just giving you visibility of the number of hours that need to be assigned. Previously, it just showed you the number of records. It will now show you the number of hours as well. The Force Financials recalculation feature has been optimized so it can actually be used for multiple projects at the same time now. So, for example, if you've changed the billing rate or cost rates for several projects, you can set that Force Financials recalculation field to true for all of those projects via the list view, and that will execute as a batch script in the background now. On the control pad, just to give administrators an easy way of actually identifying which user actually enabled specific settings. On each of the tiles where a setting has been enabled, you'll actually see who actually scheduled that. And the action pad filters. So the action pad has actually so you can apply filters to the standalone action pad. Previously, you weren't able to apply filters to the project overview. So we've now enhanced the project overview action pad to where you can actually apply filters. So basically, the standalone action pad has its own persistent filter, and then the project overview action pad can have a separate persistent filter. And then we've also added in a setting that allows you to control whether or not action start and end dates are controlled by the start and end dates of the checklist items. So some customers have a need for flexibility to where the action can span a longer period of time. Other customers want to be able to control and restrict the action dates to only be the earliest of the checklist start dates and the latest of the checklist end dates. So that's a setting that's been added to the control pad as well. Okay, so let's jump in and take a closer look at some of those key new features. Okay, so first of all, we're going to take a look at the portfolio and program enhancements. So you can see here I'm on a portfolio record. So I have access to my details tab, which gives me insight into a number of key fields. So the majority of these fields are actually going to be rolled up automatically based on the information from the program, which will automatically be rolled up from the information from related projects as well. So you can expand this by adding in your own custom fields, but all of these key fields will be updated automatically from information from related records. In addition to that, I can access the Gantt chart. So if I click onto the Gantt chart here, you'll see I'm looking at my portfolio. Within that, I've got my programs and then the projects within that program. So if I scroll down, you'll see that I've got a few different projects. I've got multiple programs being viewed, so it gives me access to a lot of information. So multiple programs with multiple related projects, all accessible from this portfolio level. I also have access to the whiteboard, so that's going to be filtering the whiteboard down to show any actions that relate to projects, that relate to the programs, that relate to the portfolio that I'm looking at. And the charts that you're probably familiar with on the program and project level, you can also access those at the portfolio level. So giving me a full summary of what's going on across all projects within this portfolio. So I can scroll down and see all of that information there. Related is obviously just giving me access to all of the key related lists. So primarily giving me access to my programs that relate to this portfolio, and then giving me access to the chatter feed as well. So very similar to that, if I jump over to a program, so as I mentioned earlier, similar to the portfolio, all of those key fields have been added to the program level as well. So all those fields get updated based on project information, and I also have access to the Gantt chart, whiteboard chart, similar to what I've just shown you, as well as the program planner, which is obviously a feature that's available at the program level. So obviously portfolios and programs giving us layers above our projects to manage a group of projects, so ultimately allowing you to manage larger programs of work. So we've enhanced the cloning functionality within Mission Control to also extend to phases. So, for example, if we're cloning a project and that project has phases, those phases will now be cloned, and that also applies when you're generating a project via the auto generation feature available from the opportunity object. Any phases that relate to the project that is specified as the project template will also be cloned, and the same will happen via project requests as well. So quickly, just to demonstrate here, I'm on a project and this has phases. So if I clone this project, so click on clone. So you can see that the phases have also been cloned as part of that process, and obviously any milestones that related to those phases have been parented accordingly as well. So taking a closer look at some of the enhancements that have been made to the Gantt chart, obviously already explained, we can now access the Gantt chart at the portfolio and program layer. What's also been done along with that is the ability to add and edit. So you can see here, if I click on the edit icon for the portfolio, I'm able to access the portfolio modal. I can also get through to the full detail record as well as the chatter feed for that action for that record as well. Had the same access for the program, and we've also done the same thing for the phase as well. The way you can control which tabs you have access to, for, like so the phase, the modal, the record detail, and the chatter feed, they're all accessible via the individual person's role record. So on my role record, if I scroll down to my Gantt chart settings, you'll see I've now got the settings for my portfolio, my program, and my phase as well. So just expanding those modals to across those objects. The other minor enhancements are just factoring in programs and portfolios and phases into the PDF export and the CSV export. So I've exported my entire portfolio here, so you can see we've ultimately just added in portfolios, programs, and phases into that export, as well as the PDF export as well. So you can see my portfolio, my program, my projects, my phases, milestones, actions, checklists, and so on. So you can export that full portfolio of work as you need to. So we've added a number of additional dependency options as part of this release. Ultimately giving you greater flexibility in managing predecessor relationships. So you can now create dependencies that include phases. So whether it's a finish to start, start to start, or finish to finish, the parent or the child could be a phase. So in my example here, you can see that I've got a finish to start from one phase through to another. I could equally have like the child or the parent as a milestone or an action or a checklist. Ultimately, you're now able to factor in dependencies within those. You're now able to factor in phases within those dependency relationships. For full details of which dependencies are available, supported, please refer to the release notes. The other major enhancement around dependencies is the ability to actually support cross-project dependencies. So just jumping over to the standalone Gantt chart, you'll see that I have two separate projects visible here. And now what you can do within Mission Control is actually create dependencies between projects. So you can see that the training action on this project is a predecessor to the design wireframes on this project. So if I extend the duration of this action, then that cross-project dependency will ensure that anything that is dependent on the other project will automatically be rescheduled, factoring in that dependency relationship. So cross-project dependencies is now fully supported within Mission Control as well. So allowing you to control relationships across projects, probably as part of programs and portfolios. So as I mentioned, super excited to be including this enhancement. Definitely a popular request from customers. So as you're aware, you can create preset filters on all of our key pages. So things like the action pad, the checklist board, the Gantt chart, issue manager, program planner, resource planner, retro board, scheduler, storyboard, timesheet, and the whiteboard that we're on here. So these filters can now be created and shared with other users, whereas previously each individual user would have to create their own filter. So there's two major enhancements being added to the filters. So when you're making a selection, so I'm going to quickly just make a filter here, and when I create that, so I give it a name, and then I can choose to either make it available to all users or users that are a member of a specific team. So, for example, if I tick this box, this teams field will become available, and I could be actually assigning that to, for example, it might be only relevant to the consultant, so I don't want to have to clog up everyone's pick list of option filters. So I can just use the consultants, and then any user that has a role within the consultants team will have access to that filter. The other option here is that you can actually assign this as a default to either specific roles or specific teams. Now, I'll highlight this section here is only available if on the individual person's role record that is creating the filter, if there's a new field being added to the role record called apply default filters. So that field will need to be true on the person's role record, and then they would be able to set this here. Now, this is like a one-time. This is a one-time setting. Obviously, I might choose to. I might choose to go in and actually assign this to like Alana and let's say Carissa. But then after I've done that, Carissa might go and reset her own preset default to match her own preferences. So after I've done this, when I reload the filter, I won't see the visibility of my previous selection. This is just a way of me applying the default at the time of creating it. So this functionality is now available on all of those key feature pages that I mentioned, and hopefully everyone agrees that it's going to be making creating filters and managing filters far more productive for certainly for administrators, and it means that individual users aren't going to have to be creating filters themselves ongoing. One additional thing to note that when you are creating a new role record, when the master team field is populated for that role, any preset filters that are assigned as a default for that master team, they will be automatically assigned for that role as well. So we've applied a few major enhancements to the project overview component. So one of them is the on the Insights tab, we have added in a number of additional charts. So things like the burn down chart, the risk summary, the checklist item summaries, as well as a purchase orders chart as well. So in addition to that, you can now control on an individual user level which charts a person can see. So I'll just jump over to my role record and scroll down. You'll see there are a number of fields available to me now within a section called Project Overview Insights Chart Settings. So if I edit any of these and set these to false, this allows me to control the visibility of each of the individual chart components on that page. So for example, I might want people to see my completed actions and my checklist items, but I don't want them to see anything relating to like the billable, the invoicing, the P&L. So I can remove those charts from individual users just by unchecking these boxes here. The other thing that we've done is refactored the overview tab. So as well as the completed and overdue actions charts, you now have access to the completed and overdue checklist item charts. The work breakdown structure component has been like completely redeveloped to give you access to the phases as well. So where a phase is in existence on a project, that is now accessible, and any milestones that sit underneath that will be available as well. You can also quickly expand or collapse levels. So you can, if I click that, it's going to hide my checklists. If I click it again, it would hide my actions. So I'm now just looking at my individual phases and milestones. So you can expand and collapse it as needed. So the other thing to note here is all of the fields that are visible on each record level are set by default, but you can control those via field sets on the applicable appropriate object. So if I want to change the fields that are displayed for my phase, I would simply go and modify the fields that are selected in the in that field set. So all of the field sets are documented in the release notes. Obviously, start and end date warnings as they previously used to be. All of the functions that that you're used to seeing, that the resource assignment wizard, viewing contributors, logging time, accessing checklists, the issue manager, splitting actions, editing actions, or deleting. You can do all of that. And the other thing is you can control the sort order of these records as well. So these are the settings by default, but you can control how your phases are sorted, how your milestones are sorted, how your actions and checklists are sorted as well. To get back to out of the box defaults, just click the reset button there. And similarly, we've also updated the expenses tab as well. So added a couple of additional charts. So we've added purchase orders and so we've added the purchase order chart. And what we've also done is added the purchase orders tab. So it will default to expenses. Customers can get straight to their expenses tab. Any expenses that are visible, again, the fields that are displayed here will be can be controlled via a field set. You're able to create a new expense, you're able to create a new purchase order. I can also toggle over two purchase orders, and that would give me access to the purchase order line items, as well as any related expenses as well. So again, all of the fields on all of these tables are all controlled via field sets to give you flexibility of modifying or adding additional fields. So the enhancements that have been made to the Create Actions page don't really provide any new functionality to this page, but ultimately just hopefully make it a bit more efficient and make you a bit more productive when building out building out your actions. So one thing to note is you now have the inline edit for like editing multiple records. So for example, if I need to change the hours on four of these four of these records, I can just select all of those records that I need to modify. If I make a change on one of them, you see that same change gets applied to all of the records that I've selected. So ultimately, making it possible to update multiple records at the same time. The other features are just being able to copy the action owner from the record above. So you can see that on row 3, I've already assigned Colin as the action owner. So if I know that same person needs to be the action owner of row 4, I can just click on the copy icon, and that will copy that down. So rather than having to go through the process of looking that person up each time, I can just make a copy of it, and that's just going to make it a bit more efficient for me to populate that record. That field. The other thing that we have a quick copy on is the resource assignment wizard as well. So if I add in some contributors to this action, so I'll just add Alana, give her 4 hours, and I'll also add in Carissa and give her 4 hours. So now that this action has contributors, there's a copy icon on the action below that. So what that indicates to me is that that there are contributors on this action. Now, if I want to copy them, I just click on the copy contributors from previous row icon, and that will copy contributors to this action as well. And so basically the copy icon will only be visible if there are contributors on the action above that. So again, just making it a bit more of an efficient way of assigning people to an action. So if you're building a template and you need certain people on every single action, you don't have to go through the process of assigning the contributors manually to each action. You could assign them to one and then copy them down to each one appropriately. So on the holiday allowance object, what used to be referred to as accruals has now been changed to be referred to as a rollover. So you can indicate whether a holiday allowance can roll over to the next period and what percentage. So that functionality hasn't changed. It's just the labels have changed. That's been done to allow us to actually introduce an actual accrual process. So for example, at the moment, my allowance is available to me immediately. So this is controlled via a setting on the control pad within custom settings. So you can see here, holiday allowance accrues. If this is false, what that means is my available allowance is available to me immediately from day one of that holiday allowance period. So just jumping back over to my holiday allowance record, so you can see it runs from the 1st of January through to the 31st of January. I have 20 days allowance, and my available allowance is 20 days. Now, if I go and enable my accrual process, what that will do is it will ensure only the amount that has accrued from the start date to today is actually available. So I'm just going to jump back onto that record and refresh that. So you'll see now that my available allowance has changed. So it's gone from 20 down to 14.35, and that's based on the allowance per day, based on how many days there are in the period. So looking at the start date to today, that's the amount of my allowance that has accrued, and that will be what's available for me to actually book against. We've added a new setting to the project automation settings section of the control pad on the mission control console, and this lets you control what happens when you set the status of an action to cancelled. So by default, nothing happens to the hours scheduled fields. So if you want to change the value, you can enable this setting. So when I enable that, I also need to choose what my reduction rule will be. So the options are you can set it to 0, or you can match the hours completed. So for example, if we've already done some work and we're then cancelling the action, we might want to set the hours scheduled to match the hours completed. Alternatively, we might choose to just set the hours scheduled to 0. So when the reduction rule is set to 0, the hours scheduled billable will be set to 0, and the hours scheduled non-billable will be set to 0. When the reduction rule is set to match hours completed, the hours scheduled billable will be set to equal the hours completed billable, and the hours scheduled non-billable will be set to equal the hours completed non-billable. So as mentioned, if the setting is false, both the hours scheduled billable and hours scheduled non-billable will not be reduced at all when the action status is set to cancelled. Okay, so running through the enhancements that have been added to the scheduler. So we have added in an hours summary for each cell on the actions view. So when we're on the actions view and we are we're showing the collapsible sections for each role, you will see a summary of how many hours are being made up from all of the actions assigned to each person for that particular period. So obviously in this instance it's a day. So I can see here that there's a lot of work assigned to Collins. He's obviously got 8 hours available. There's 27 hours being assigned to him. So giving me an indication that we've over allocated this person, and we need to probably try and remove those bottlenecks. So this is available as a setting that you can choose to turn on or off. So if I click onto the scheduler settings, you need to have the numbers appear. You need to just set this setting to true. So show section hours summary, and you'll just notice there that in order for that to display, you also need to have the collapsible sections enabled as well. So ultimately, you would need both of these field settings set to true. The other things that we've done to the scheduler is so we've added in a quick search, so I can quickly type in a role name, hit enter, and that will actually remove everyone else and only let me see the people that match that search string. So if I get rid of that, it just loads back to where I was. And the other thing that we've done is added in the ability to load the data via a polling function. So rather than all of the data trying to be loaded in one go, it can be loaded in chunks, ultimately making it more scalable for customers with large data sets. The other thing to assist with that is pagination. So you'll see here that I've got pagination turned on, and when you do have pagination turned on, you can navigate between the pages using these icons here, or you can jump to a specific page as well. So the polling and the pagination is controlled via the control pad. So within this scheduler settings tile, you'll see that you can enable polling, and you can adjust the quantity of records that you query in one polling batch. The pagination can also be enabled separately to the polling, and you can choose how many roles per page are loaded based on those values there. So as I say, these two features we recommend enabling regardless of the volume that you have, but certainly for any customer that does have a large volume of resources and projects, we would definitely recommend you enable these to make sure the scheduler is optimized to support that record volume. So on the role forecast component, one fairly minor but fairly effective enhancement that's been added is the ability to access the resource assignment wizard when you're adding a new resource. So obviously you'll need to set a start date and working days, but if you don't know which person you're looking for, you can open the resource assignment wizard, search based on team membership, skill set, skill proficiency, and assign the applicable person there. So for example, if I say, okay, well, I'm looking for someone from next week for 15 days, rather than selecting someone straight away, I can jump into the resource assignment wizard. That's going to load that up, so I can obviously make my selections and then drag over who I actually want to assign as that role for that role forecast. So obviously making a more informed decision than rather than just looking at a list of resources. So that populates that. I can fill in the rest of the information and then add the role forecast to the list there. Okay, hopefully you like what you see. We're obviously super excited to be making all of this new functionality available to you. So let's take a look at when that's going to become available. So as I mentioned, it's going to be available as of the 22nd of September 2023. That will be available for you to manually upgrade from the App Exchange. On the 30th of September, we will be automatically upgrading all sandbox orgs. And then on the 7th of October, we'll be automatically upgrading all production orgs as well. So with all of that said, I'd like to thank you for your time. As always, really appreciate everyone's amazing feedback. Any ideas that you have, please feel free to keep getting in touch. They're obviously what make the product bigger and better for everybody. Thank you for your support. Have a great day. Bye.